So, welcome once again, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. Here, we just want to ask a bit more about your background. So, if you can introduce yourself and just talk a bit about your background and how that links to thinking systemically, in that area.
So my name is Kashi Carasso. I am a pharmacist by background, long time ago, and then worked briefly in the pharmaceutical industry, and then went to MSF as I wanted to work more, well, where it really matters, put it that way. And subsequently worked with the UN, worked with some other NGOs like Clinton Foundation in Ethiopia and DRC, did my master's in public health, and then did research for a number of years at LSHTM, where I also did my master's, and then went into consulting. I'm now partner with HERA. And I'm focusing on supply chain, access to medicine, more health systems thinking and health system strengthening, evaluations of systems, and capacity building. I'm very much focused on training, teaching, capacity building. And in my other life, I'm also a trauma therapist and working on, trying to support health and well-being of people on a more individual level.
That's awesome. It's a huge
it's
background
a
of thinking. But then already it shows a bit of embodiment of this system's way of things, how things are all connected, and you've touched quite a variety of things in your life, and you're still obviously doing a lot of these things. So why is systems thinking important to you?
Good question. I think it's very, very important to have people as the starting point.
Yeah.
And I don't think people can be categorized in either health or either education or either livelihood or social sectors or things like that. So I think the moment that you take a person as the starting point for everything, that kind of shows that kind of is by default a kind of a systems way of thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a bit more? Taking somebody as a starting point, how does that? I'm not sure I really understand.
Well, if you see, if I just look at it from my own perspective, so I'm working a lot on access to medicine.
Okay.
If I would only focus on supply chain management, which is very important. It's very technical area, making sure the drugs, very technical, very practical, actually, exactly. Making sure the drugs are there at the right place, the right time, and the right quality for the right price and all that. The person takes it in the right way. If you only focus on supply chain, if you only focus on this, which is in itself a system of, obviously, it's a supply chain system in itself, So in that respect, focusing on this system, but also this system within the wider system of how someone gets to the facility, if they can afford, if they, their livelihood outside of that. So that's why I say taking the person as the starting point, asking what's needed, seeing what this person needs, and then kind of take it from there. But you could even argue that supply chain in itself is a whole, obviously it's a whole system in itself. So it's a system
like
in itself. I have a very public health background. I used to work with MSF. I love MSF. I still talk about we when I talk about MSF, but it's a bit more of a parallel approach.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like the public health approach to see where does this fit into the wider system in the country? How does it link with Ministry of Health?
Yes.
How can we make this more or less sustainable, making sure it doesn't only benefit a small group of people, but a wider group of people? I'm not sure that really answers your question, but I
But it
think
gives some insight to it. I think I understand a bit better how it is important for you, especially talking about the system in its own and how this system is in relation with other multiple systems around it to help you understand the inflow.
it's a whole, yeah. And I say there as well, which is maybe a bit outside of this the scope what you're talking about, but taking the person as a starting point is also why I really wanted to go into trauma therapy and psychotherapy and so on, because there's a lot of need there as well.
Well,
So
yeah,
just again seeing what is needed and starting with the person
that
again.
person, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can also say that a person in its own is an open system, and it is through this person that you can bring in the other stuff. Yeah. So
Exactly.
I totally
Yeah.
understand what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And so how do you practice systems thinking did you learn about systems thinking before and then, or it was through the job? So as a practitioner or as a teacher of systems thinking, which one are you?
No, I think I just learned on the job. I mean, I started after my pharmacy study. I never wanted to become a pharmacist. I was just very interested in, the interaction between a compound and a body, and how that works, and the whole, chemistry behind it. I find very interesting. No, I mean, I actually started doing behavioral psychopharmacology. Sorry.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I did research on schizophrenia and the body and so on, so that was with rats and
Yeah.
very specific, very basic research. So I think I'm branching out more and more because I think I'm starting to realize for myself. And again, I mean, I think everybody can find their own niche in what's important for them. Huh? But for me, what's really important is to kind of think more to kind of understand what's needed a bit better, and then to kind of realize with certain things I've learned or certain things that I'm capable of doing, to see where in this whole palette of things that are needed and that are all interrelated and interlinked, where at which point of this whole web I can contribute something a little bit. But I think, just to come back to your question, I think for that it's important to have a bit more I don't think you can learn this through just reading books or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's more of getting a bit more understanding of what's there, and then see with your personal capabilities and your personal expertise and also your personal enthusiasm for certain things to do, where you fit into this whole web of everything. Yeah.
Okay. So I like that aspect that you brought up on not being able to teach it in the sense of reading something and understanding. But for us, what we're trying to do is to create a game on this and to help to promote a more experiential learning approach to discovering, just discovering these complexities. So maybe increasing the person's conscience to the fact that things are indeed complicated and we cannot have a linear solution to a particular problem, So in your opinion, do you think that could be a way to maybe teach systems thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I love training, capacity building, and so on. Yeah. And that is the whole thing of learning by doing. And the way I teach is not standing in front of a classroom and telling them how to do it, but with case studies, with, the kind of experiential learning and so on. And that's very much what you're describing here as well, right? So I think it's brilliant. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing your result when it gets there.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. So that's great. Thank you so much for this interview.